Oh, 70A, 70B. 70. Okay, 70B. So the verse told us that there are certain fats of an avela and a treifa that are permitted. And there's two ways to understand it. Was the verse talking about a kosher animal, or was it talking about a non-kosher animal? On top of 70B, the Gemara said, the word treifa told us that it's only something that has in its category a treifa, which is a kosher animal. Therefore, we exclude as hatmeya she'ein b'mina treifa. So we're talking about a treifa. The pasuk's talking about a kosher animal because a kosher animal has something in its category that has a status of a treifa. And a kosher animal that gets one of the fatal wounds will be considered a treifa, it has its own category, and not the non-kosher animal. Fine. And therefore, its fats are going to be permitted. V'lo oti asachaya sheyesh b'mina treifa. But we're not going to exclude the wild animal. Right? A behema is a domestic animal, and a chaya is a wild animal. Sheyesh b'mina treifa. A wild animal has in its has a category of a treifa, so we're not going to exclude it. Talmud lomar, the end of the verse says you shall not eat, meaning it won't give off impurity, the fats, but you still can't eat it. That we learn out. Good morning. Secret door over there. How do you know? Where'd you come from? The window. Pull up your windows. How'd you get in? So Misha Chalva Asaru B'Sara Mutter. It says you cannot eat the fats, meaning it's referring to something which the fats you can't eat, but the meat you could eat. What is that coming to exclude? Yotzachaya Shechalvu B'Sara Mutter. That's coming to exclude a wild animal whose fats and meat is mutter. I think if you look at the verses that talk about forbidden fats, it's only forbidden fats of domesticated animals, but not of wild animals. So at the end of the day, this verse teaches us that the fats of a kosher domesticated animal are going to be, are not going to give off impurity, and they will be forbidden for consumption, as opposed to a non-kosher animal. Its fats are not going to be permitted, and a wild animal, its fats will be permitted. Yeah. Good. Yeah. Okay. So, Amar Le Rav Yaakov Bar Abba L'Rava. Says Rav Yaakov Bar Abba L'Rava, Ela miato, according to your logic, nevelas behema tahurahu demetama, and nevelas behema tmeya lo metama. Meaning, in the middle of this brisa, on the bottom of the previous page, when we suggested both possibilities, is the verse talking about a kosher animal or a non-kosher animal? So it had a vague line over there that said that there was a certain non-kosher species that became permitted. So what was that talking about? That's what he's asking. Elamiata, nevelas behema tahora hudamatama. Only the kosher animal is going to give over impurity, but there's some kind of non-kosher animal that's not going to give over impurity. It sounded like on the bottom of the previous page that the non-kosher species become purified. So is that really true? They don't become nevelas, they don't give off impurity. So Amarle, Kama Sabi Shabishtuba. How many elders made a mistake when reading that brisa? When it said that there's a non-kosher species that becomes pure, it wasn't talking about all non-kosher species. It was talking about one non-kosher species, and that was the bird. The nevelas of tame. A nevelas of tame, when it dies, it is going to be purified. It's not going to cause contamination. But every other non-kosher species will cause contamination. Right? It said on the bottom of the previous page, it said, yeah. That which it said that only this non-kosher animal, when it's in a vela, will cause impurity. will not cause impurity, that's only referring to a non-kosher bird, and not anything else. Yeah. Okay. Fine. So that's that. Amar Rabbi Yochanan lo tir Reb Meir ela b'tfis. Now, this Reb Meir in our Mishnah, back to our Mishnah, that said when you do malika on a bird and it comes out to be a treifa, so that he said is not going to be nevela. Rabbi Yehuda argues. Reb Meir is the novel opinion that says that malika will remove the animal from the status of a treifa. That okay, so now how far does Reb Meir go with this? So what about? So Rabbi Yochanan says, "Lo tir Reb Meir ela b'tmimin." Yeah, those are by non-blemished animals. There he'll say that malika will remove it from its blemish status, from its nevela status. Aval b'bali mumin, if it has a mum, low. If it has a blemish, so then the malika is not going to remove it from its blemish status, and therefore it will be a nevela. So it's interesting. If it's a treifa, it has a fatal wound, so that removes it from its nevela status. But if it already comes blemished, whatever it is, it's missing a leg, so doing malika on that will not remove it from its blemish status. Interesting what the difference should be. Yeah. So that is okay, fine. That is Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Elazar Amar afilu b'bali mumin. He said no, even a blemished animal, if you do malika on it, it's going to remove it from its blemished status. Itmar nami. So we have two opinions that reflect these two opinions. Itmar nami Amar Bibi Amar Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Bibi said name Rabbi Elazar. Mitayar higher Rabbi Meir. So we see in the Amarayim they quote the earlier Tanaim as supporting what we just said, that Rabbi Meir higher Rabbi Meir b'bali mumin. Rabbi Meir said his novelty even by blemished animals, even by avazim, even by geese, v'tarnagolim, and roosters, those things that are not fit for the altar. The geese and the tarnagol and the rooster are not fit to be brought up as a sacrifice, and yet, according to this, Rav Meir will hold if you do a malika, it'll remove it from its status of a nevela. Yeah, right. I think there's a discussion. Talk about a goose and a rooster. Rashi seems to say, no, Rashi said, no, he says that, are we talking about non-sanctified roosters and non-sanctified geese? Or are you talking about somehow you sanctify the geese and the rooster, even though it's not fitting for the altar? So Rashi seems to say only if they're sanctified. Only if they're sanctified. But if they're not sanctified, then it wouldn't work. I think others argue that say no. Anytime you go inside the courtyard and you do malika on a geese or on a rooster, it'll still remove it from the status of an nevela. Fine. So that is that is Rav Bibi in the name of Rabbi Elazar, that he seems to support. Rabbi Elazar from earlier, yeah. So maybe Rabbi Elazar said earlier that Rav Meir agrees by blemished animals, and we have Rav Bibi saying in Rabbi Elazar the same thing. Good. Now, classic Gemara. We just learned that there's a certain procedure called malika in a certain category of the Torah, like by birds, right? And then we learned that it can remove an animal from the status of a nevela, of a carcass, right? To do malika. Now, what about different procedures in different parts of the Torah? So, for example, if you find the carcass, a human body, in the middle of the forest, right? So you find the nearest city and you blame them, right? You blame their rabbis. So what do? You have a procedure called egla rufa. So you bring the calf, and special thing, you got to break the back of its neck. So what about those cases? Is that going to remove the animal from the status of a nevela? You do that arufa process. So Bayu Rav Yirmiyah, aruf eiz mahu. Now you took a goat instead of a calf. Let's take a calf, not a goat. Let's say you took a goat and you did a rufa. You aruf the goat. You went to the back and neck and you did the procedure that you were supposed to do on a calf, right? So this is similar to doing malika on a goose, right? This is a very similar case. Your arif eiz mahu. So Avaz and Vitarnagol and geese and roosters, time amai, Demina de Ophos. At the end of the day, they're under the category of birds. Malika is done on birds. So you're right. These birds you can't bring up on the altar, but since Malika is done on birds, at least it's not the farthest stretch to say it'll remove these animals from the status of an avela. Aval A's, a goat. Lav mina de eglahu. A goat is not in the category of a calf. A calf is a baby cow. A goat, last we checked, is not a baby cow. Now, if it identifies as a baby cow, if you want to be a baby cow, put a sticker on a baby, it's not. It's a goat. Yeah, can't you see? Time and time again, we see you can't change identities yet. We're going to shoot. Okay. No. Identifies innocent. Yeah. So, Lav mina de eglahu. Okay. That's one. That's on the other hand, Odilma, okay, but how far out you want to go? At the end of the day, the goat and the calf are both domesticated. Odilma mina de behemahu. And they're still domesticated. They're both in the category of domesticated. So maybe that process will work even on a goat. Interesting. So Yosef, you can imagine, it's an Erev Pesach, and then they call the rabbi out to the middle of the forest. He's in the middle of getting ready for Pesach, and they have to find the calf. They can't find the calf. They taste the nearest goat. He goes, yeah, and now they want to know. Oh no, I messed up. So Yosef Rav Dimi v'kamer lo lahashmaita. So Rav Dimi was sitting, and he said over the following teaching about the goat. Amar le'abaye, one second. Nechlal de egla arufa tehurahi. One second. You're making a big fat assumption over here. You're asking by a goat if it gets removed from being an avela. Who told you that doing the egla arufa process removes the actual calf from being an avela? You're asking about a goat, but one second. Who said about a calf that that's true? So Amrlay in. It is going to be removed from an avela. How do I know? It says the word kapara, atonement, by the egla rupa, just like it says it by a sacrificial offering. So just like by the offerings that are removed from an avela, so too by the egla rupa, the process will remove it from the status of a nevela. Okay, fine. So the question of the goat remains, but the egla rufa, if actual calf, you do the egla rufa process to the calf, that will remove it from the status of an avela, because it says the word kapara here, it says the word kapara there, and Masiv Rav Nassan Avud Rav Huna. So ask Rav Nassan, the father of Rav Huna, a question. It says by the fats of an avela and the fats of a treifa, it says you cannot eat the fats. So now, that's all true, that the fats are forbidden from eating, but they're permitted for usage, right? That was that whole verse. The fats are permitted to use by an avela, a treifa, which we established was referring to a kosher animal. The fats are permitted for usage, they're just prohibited from eating. Now, what about the chelev shel shor haniskel, the egla rufa? What about the fats of an animal that's liable to death? So you have an ox that's wild, and it goes and it's warned, the owner's warned, and it goes and kills somebody. You have to now stone the ox. Or the egla rufa, which is also prohibited from getting benefit from. So those things are prohibited from benefit. So what about their fats? Are their fats prohibited or permitted? So Talmud Lomar, kol chelev. The pasuk teaches you kol chelev, any fat, even the fat of an animal that is prohibited from getting benefit from, such as the stoned ox or the egla rufa. You should know though, its fats will be permitted for usage. Okay, now what's that do to us? Let's see. And if you want to tell me that an egla rufa is tehorihi, tehorihi means that it's not going to be an avela. So right now it's not an avela. So one second. If the egla rufa, after you do the process, you killed it through the special egla rufa process. If you want to tell me it itself is pure, it doesn't convey tumah. So you need a verse to teach me that its fats are pure too? If it's pure, its fats are pure. Why would its fats be prohibited? So the he tahora v'chel batame doesn't make sense. The verse is needed for a case where the animal is impure and the fats are pure. Oh, that's a novelty. If the animal itself is pure, then the fats should be pure too. So we don't need the extra word kol to teach you that. So says the Gemara, you're right. You're right. When I did the Egla Rufa process, the animal's pure, and I do not need a verse to teach me that its fats are going to be pure also. You're right. However, it's stricha. When do I need it? Heicha de shachta mishchat. When I slaughtered it. So instead of doing Egla Rufa, you did a shchita on the animal. You went and you slaughtered the animal in the regular fashion, not the Egla Rufa fashion, but the regular fashion. So says the Gemara, and that's the case where the animal itself is going to be impure. However, its fats, the Torah teaches us, kol chelev, will be pure. Says the Gemara, well, why should that be true? Let the slaughtering of the animal remove it from the status of a nevela. And then it would be pure. Once it's pure, we're back to our question that you don't need the pasuk to teach you that the fats of a pure animal are also pure. That's obvious. So, but the hanile shchita letara midei nevela. Says the Gemara, lo tzricha shemesa. No, you're right. If you were to slaughter it, it would become pure. We need the verse to teach you about an animal, the Egla Rufa, that died on its own. When it died on its own, now it's going to be impure, and its fats are going to be considered pure. Okay. So says the Gemara, hold on. Lo tzricha shemesa. Okay. Lo tzricha shemesa. Says the Gemara, this sounds like, though, that michlal demechayim asura, meaning it sounds like if you were to slaughter it, it would be pure now. It would remove it from the status of an nevela. It sounds like, though, when it's alive, it's prohibited. At what point did this Egla Rufa become prohibited? It's a regular calf. You took it from wherever you buy baby calves, from the baby calf store, yeah, and from the bodega, and you go and you take the baby calf, and now you bring it into the special Nachal Esim, a special valley. Okay, so at what point did it become prohibited? It says if you slaughter it, it'll become permitted. When was it prohibited? So it says that, was it ever prohibited when it was alive? It says it was. When Amar Biyanai Gavul Shamati v'Shachachti, I heard a boardroom. I mean, I guess I heard a time that it became prohibited. At some point it became prohibited. I forgot what it was. The Nazmin Chaviroi and the students, my friends, they gave the time frame. AKA I remember then. The Nazmin Chaviroi, they explained L'neimer Yiridasul L'Nachal Esan Hios Ras. Anything. The second that calf starts going down into the special valley, into the Nachal Esan special valley, so it is going to be prohibited. At that point, it's prohibited. I guess every place outside of a city has a valley. Find a valley. What if there's no valley?
It's on a plane.
There's a chapter where it's in Purim called Egla Rufa. No, in Soto. Can't wait to learn that. You get more details. But yeah, the descent into the valley is going to be not LA. Yeah, the descent into the valley is going to be that which prohibited it, and therefore it is prohibited. And therefore, when it dies, it's going to be prohibited, and therefore its fats will be permitted. Okay, fine. That concludes the slaughtering, the sin offering of the oath. Okay. Prohibits you. The osters you up, yeah. So okay. So Kol has okay. So now we're going to get very interesting because this comes up a lot in what we're learning in the morning in the Kol. So it's exciting. So basically, how we deal with we had a little bit in Sanhedrin, how you deal with mixture, right? So we know that things are once you have a mixture, so there's rules. Do you after the majority? Is it the same species? A different species? Things that are significant are not nullified. So it's going to come up. It's going to come up in the first Daf over here. So Kol hazvachim. So all of the sacrificial offerings. Shenis arvu bechatos hamesos. So there are 5 chatos offerings that have to be killed. Halacha Moshe Messina. There are 5 of them. So easiest case is if you have Reuben is the owner of a sin offering and Reuben dies. Called chatu shemesu ba'alehem. So halacha Moshe Messina, that chatos has to die. There's 5 of them that halacha Moshe Messina, Gemara and Tumur I think talks about it, that they have to die. So if the chatos gives birth, so the vlada chatos that has to die, the chatos that owners died, it has to die. If you exchange a sin offering onto another offering, that newly exchanged sin offering has to die. Let's say you designated a sin offering, then you lost it, and you replaced it, and then found the first one. So yeah, or I think if it has a wound, also it has to die. So now what happens? You have a sacrificial offering, a regular offering that gets mixed. Shenis aru bechatos hamesos. Your regular offering got mixed up with a bunch of offerings that all were destined to die because they're called the category of chatos hamesos, sin offerings that have to be killed. That's one case. O b'shor niskal. Let's say your sacrificial offerings got mixed up with an ox that has to be stoned. Afilu achas biribuya yamusu kulan. So even if it sounds like from the words of the Mishnah, sounds like even if one of them, even if one of them get mixed up, like so the words sound like the Gemara is going to ask on this, but one kosher animal gets mixed up with a lot of kosher animals get mixed up with an ox that has to be stoned. Afilu achas biribuya. It sounds like one kosher animal gets mixed with 1,000 animals that have to be stoned. So the Gemara asks, like, what's the afilu? I mean, obviously, what's even one kosher animal gets mixed with 1,000 oxen that have to get stoned. Well, yeah, obviously, if you have 1 in 1,000, you go after the majority. So the Gemara is going to ask on that. Fine. So what's the halacha though? Offerings that get mixed with either 2 kinds of offerings that have to get killed. Either the category of chatos hamesos, sin offerings that have to get killed. That's one. Or it gets mixed with the oxen that have to be stoned. So the halacha is you have to kill all the offerings. All the offerings have to be killed. Fine. That's the first category. Now we're going to have a second category. Is going to be things that you don't kill them, but they cannot be brought up onto the altar. For example, a regular offering gets mixed up b'shor shenev the avera. Yeah.
You're saying kill them.
How do you kill them? So the ox you have to stone. That's easy. The other ones you leave to die, I guess. Yeah. You asked me, can you just shoot it dead? Can you shoot it dead? No, I mean you have to leave it.
You have to leave it.
You die. It shouldn't really matter. You just one that has to. Yeah, but usually you leave it to pasture to get a blemish.
Right.
Then you sell it.
Right.
But in this case, yeah, you leave it to die. Pasture without food, right? Yeah. Good question. So, okay. So now the second category is nisarvu b'shor shenevda bo avera. You have a regular animal, a sacrificial animal, that gets mixed up with an ox that committed an avera. So for example, I guess let's see now. Well, I know. So, but we're going to see. It's gonna specify the different examples. So let's say Rashi points out. So let's say it kills a person, but only on the account of one person's testimony, or on the account of the owner's testimony. So we can't kill the animal for that. If an ox kills somebody, but only I testify about it, not 2 people. It needs to have testimony of 2 people to kill it, not 1 person. But if it has 1 person's testimony, then it cannot be brought up on the altar anymore. We don't kill it, but it's exempt, so to speak, from stoning. But it still can't be brought up. What we're going to see now, if it's going to have a bestiality with it. Mm-hmm. Those are things you don't kill the animal, but but only if it's 1 witness. Only if it's 1 witness. So let's see. Let's hear the Mishnah speak. Let's see. Oh, shehemis is adam al peirechem. So it's an animal that committed that did an avera, or it killed somebody on the testimony of one. Yeah, okay. They take out the O because the O sounds like it's a separate thing, but really it's a setup. This Arab B'Shor Shenevdebo Avera. What is that? Shehemis has it kills somebody with one person's testimony. So we don't stone it, but it's prohibited to be brought on the altar. Oh, al pi bailim, or if it's owners themselves, if the owners say this is prohibited, so then it's going to be prohibited, even though we can't stone it, but it'll be prohibited. Or beroveya venirba, either a person has relations with it or it has relations with a person. That's also only with one witness. Yeah. So, so all these animals are only prohibited to bring onto the altar, but a regular person can still benefit from them. Or b'muktzah, not Shabbos, but it's set aside for idol worship. If it's set aside for idol worship, so then you also cannot use that as a sacrifice. But you didn't bring it up yet. You didn't bring it up. You just set it aside. Or v'ne'evad, you actually served. You actually bowed down to it as an idol. Those ones are still permitted for human consumption. I can benefit from an animal that was bowed down to, but it cannot be brought on the altar. Or be'esnan, an animal that was given in exchange for prostitution, that animal cannot be brought on the altar. Or umechir, just umechir. Umechir means umechir kelet. It means you you gave it in exchange and you bought a dog with it. Another part of the Torah, you can't use that on the altar either. Vikilayim, let's say it came from a forbidden mixture. You not grafted, but you bred. Yeah, thank you. Hybrid. Yeah, you said you bred it, right? You said you bred. You breeded. Interbred. Okay, you interbred.
Or you made a hybrid.
Or you made a hybrid. Okay, fine. So either way, you drove a hybrid into it. No. So ubetreifa, or if it has a fatal wound, so a person can eat it, but it cannot be brought on the altar. Beyotze dofen, it's a C-section, that also cannot be brought up on the altar, but a person can consume it. All of those cases, so you have a kosher animal mixed to one of these mixtures. What do? Jules' favorite case, yiru achi tztova v'yimkuru. You leave it to graze, like at the blemish, and then you sell it. And then you could sell it. Yeah. The Yomi, the Yavi, the Demei Hayafa Shebehen. Now you don't know which one was the good sacrifice. So you look at the best species, what's the fanciest animal around in this mixture that's now forbidden, and that's the one that you use the money, the most expensive money. You use that one, and that however much it's worth, the nice animal. So that money you use to buy another animal of its kind. Okay. Next mixture, nisarvu bechulin tmimin. So now you have a sacrificial animal that's mixed into a bunch of mundane animals. Now you don't know which one is offered on the mizbeach, on the altar, which one isn't. So what do? Yimkaru hachulin litzorche osuamin. So you're going to sell all the so you're going to sell them. Yimkaru hachulin, you're going to sell all of these animals for the purpose of that animal. So let's say it's an ola. So you'll sell all these unconsecrated animals. You'll sell the whole bunch for that one animal that got mixed in the bunch, for that shlamim, for that ola, for that chatas. Okay. Now what happens if it's kachim bekachim? Min b'mino. So you have sacrificial offerings got mixed together with sacrificial offerings. So we're all bringing shlamims together. We're all bringing olas together. But now they all got mixed up. We don't know which is a Gleizer ola, which is a Ma'iravetz ola, which is a Steiber ola. We don't know. So what do? So the Kohanim are going to bring it, and they're going to say, this will be brought for whoever its owner is. And that counts. Zeh yikrav l'shem mishahu, but zeh yikrav l'shem mishahu. This is brought for whoever he is, and this is brought for whoever he is. And that's fine. Now, what about kachim bekachim min b'she'eno mino? But what about we bringing offerings, but I'm bringing ola, you're bringing a shlamim, you're bringing a chatas? So those offerings have different rules, different blood sprinkling, different libations, different rules of different offerings, where it's brought, how to bring it. So you can't just say, oh, for whoever it is, because it's going to have different rules, different sprinklings of the blood. So what do you do in that case? So in that case, yiru achi yistovu, you have to let them graze until they get a wound, and then you sell it, and v'yavi b'dimei hayafa sheben mimin zeh, u'b'dimei hayafa sheben mimin zeh. Sounds like you take the most expensive offering that's there, and you say, okay, this will be for his ola, and then you do it again. Take the next most expensive offering, and you say, okay, this will be for his shlamim, and you'll buy an ola and you'll buy a shlamim. The yavsid hamosar mi beso, and you're going to end up losing out. But I guess it sounds like you just choose the most expensive offering, only one of them, and both of you have to buy. Both of you have to buy with. So let's say you have a bunch of offerings mixed together, and you don't know which is an ola, shlamim, chal. You don't know. The nice offering is worth $1,000, so you have to go. Jules has to go sell it for $1,000 and use that money to buy himself an offering, his ola offering. I need to go also to that $1,000 and spend that money on my chatas offering, but I'm going to lose out because only one of the offerings here costs $1,000, not both of them. So one of us is going to have to pay up from our house, pay up the loss, because one of us did not pay $1,000 for an offering. So the yafsid amos are basically you're gonna have to lose out the extra from your house to make it up.
They sell it, so maybe it's kind of the market price.
But it sounds like let's say the most expensive offering is $1,000, right?
Yeah.
Now both our offerings are mixed up in the bunch, but they're not. Only one of ours might be the most expensive one here, not both of ours.
Right.
So one of us is going to lose out.
No, that's true.
Yeah, yes, I think that's all it's saying.
Right.
Korban insurance, yeah, that's right.
Insurance.
That's right. Yeah, Steve has his job set out for when Mashiach comes. Kohanim training and korban insurance. So okay, the yavsid of most rabbis. Okay, nisaru b'bechor. Now, a bechor and meiser are different. They cannot. Meiser can't be redeemed, and bechor, even if it's blemished, you could still. Nisaru b'bechor meiser. Your animal gets mixed up with a bechor, a firstborn, or a mice, or the 10th animal of your flock. So yiru achi yistavu. You can let it graze until it gets a blemish. V'yochlin, you can eat it. Kibechoru k'meiser. That's fine. You can eat it like a bechor of a meiser because when they get a blemish, a regular person could eat it, but you cannot redeem them. You cannot redeem them. Right, so a regular person can eat it. Yeah. So let's say like your ola. Well, no, we're talking about kosher animals. Yeah, no, you can't eat not kosher. So let's say your ola gets mixed up with a bechor or meiser. Now, bechor and meiser, you can't exchange them. So you also can't bring them all up because they have different rules. An ola will have to be fully consumed, as opposed to a bechor is not going to be fully consumed. So what do? You let it graze, yiru achi stavu, until it gets a blemish, and then you have to exchange the money. How do you? V'yavi mo. Rashi says v'yavi mo is b'dimei yafa. Yes. Okay, this part's not in the mission. That's why. Okay. So what do? So you go like this. You say that wherever the other offering is, let's say it's the ola, wherever the other offering is, this money, it should be the sanctity of that offering should be transferred onto this money, and that'll work. And then you can eat the other offerings. So your ola is mixed with the bechor and meiser. So you say that I have this money over here. Let that sacrificial offering, my ola, whatever it is, should be transferred onto this money. And now what happens? The animal that's mixed into the bunch is no longer holy. It's now mundane. So you have a mundane offering mixed with the Bechor and Meiser. So you let it graze until they get a blemish. Once you get the blemish, you can eat it. A Bechor and Meiser you can eat even when it gets a blemish. Other ones you have to redeem and you have to sell them. These not. That's how you get out of it. So v'yochlu ki Bechor u'ki Meiser. So says the Gemara, Hakol yicholas arev chut min achatas v'asham. Any two kinds of kachim, can get mixed together, and you'll have this issue, except for achatas and asham. Achatas and asham are two different animals that are brought, so it's going to be obvious which is achatas and which is an asham. For achatas only a female, and rather than asham is going to be, they're different types of animals. Since they're different types of animals, the rule of thumb is that every mixture, if something is nicker, recognizable, then it's not part of the mixture. And it's not part of the mixture. So if you have two different types of animals, just because they're hanging out together, that's not called a mixture. A mixture has to be, you cannot identify them. Yeah. Interesting, because we have two places where there seems to be overlap what a mixture is. You have by when you say something is nullified, you only say the rule of nullification when it's a mixture. If it's identifiable, right? If you're a piece of if you're a piece of cheese, awesome, you're chawing, and that piece of cheese is right there. You don't say, "Oh no," but there's 60 times more. Let's go. You don't say that. You take the cheese out. Now you have to figure out how much of the taste of the cheese. If that's 65, you stir it first. So it's a whole Gemara. And the second case where this comes up is on Shabbos. Shabbos is there's a prohibition to do borer. You cannot do selecting. But there it's bound by the rules of if it's mixed together. So if you have your forks here and your knives here and your spoons here, in fact, if they're on the table together or in your drawer next to each other, that's not called mixed together. When you put them all in a big mishkababel, so that would be now you have to figure out how to select properly. So it's interesting, two areas that have overlap. Tarovis. What is a tarovis? Okay, so back to the beginning of the Mishnah. If you still remember it, yeah. So it says afilu. Right? What's afilu? It says even if one sacrificial offering is mixed in to 1,000 oxen that are stoned. Well, yeah, obviously you just go after the robe, after the majority. My afilu. What does it mean afilu? It says no, read it like this. Hachikama. Kol hazvachim shenis arbu ben chatos hamesos. Oh, sure, that's the other way. If you have 1,000 regular chatas, olas, shlamim, olas. You have 1,000 olas, and now one ox that's going to get stoned is supposed to get stoned walks in the bunch, or a chatas that's supposed to get killed gets mixed up with 1,000 other regular chatas offerings. Now the rule is afilu echad biribuya, even one chatas that's supposed to get killed, mixing 1,000 other ones. What's the rule? You have to kill all of them. That's a big financial loss. Yeah, musu kula. We're going to see why. It's not considered nullified, even though the rule is you go after the majority, and clearly the majority is 1,000 good sacrifices and one not good sacrifice. But we'll see. You have to kill them all. Yamusa kula. Says the Gemara. This is a very nice Mishnah, but the problem is it's repetitive. We have Tanina Chadat Zimna. We taught already in Tumura. Kol ha'asur legabe mizbeach. Anything which is prohibited to be brought up on the altar, if it gets mixed into a bunch of things that are permitted, the rule is osrin b'kol shehin. It prohibits it even with a little bit, meaning even one animal that will get mixed in to a bunch of kosher animals, it's going to prohibit all of them. So osrin b'kol shehin. So haroveya v'hanir ba. You have an animal bestiality. The person had relations with the animal mounted on the person. Such an animal that gets mixed into a bunch of animals is now going to prohibit them all. So that Mishnah already taught us that. What's our Mishnah teaching us then? Says I need both Mishnayos. Why? The Ime Hassam, if I only had the Mishnah in Tumura, all it told me was that Havamina Hanimila Ligvoa. I cannot bring any of those offerings up to the altar. But it doesn't say what I do with them. But maybe a regular person could eat those offerings. That's fine. If you have an animal that's prohibited onto the altar, like one that's a bestiality, one of those animals, so that's going to be permitted to a person. Just can't bring it on the altar. So that's what you would have thought if you only had Tmura, to which you need Zevachim to teach you that no, if it's prohibited for everybody. They all have to die. The ime halcha, if you only had our Mishnah, havamina hani hu dasur the suri hananinu, you'd have thought that maybe it's only animals that are prohibited from getting any benefit from, like a shor haniskel, an ox that's going to get stoned, or a chatas that has to die. Aval hani emalo, but maybe animals like bestiality, you would have not thought that. Therefore, you need a Mishnah Tamur to teach you that even things that are not prohibited from benefit, if they get mixed in the bunch, they're all going to be prohibited. What's the problem? The Tamur has to teach you that even though they're not prohibited from benefit, a regular person, they're still going to prohibit everything. The problem is our Mishnah lists a number of cases that are not prohibited from benefit. The only ones that are prohibited from benefit in our Mishnah is the ox that has to get stoned and the chatas that has to get killed. But the next 10 cases in the Mishnah are all cases that are not prohibited from benefit, and our Mishnah already taught it. So Hatanale, so our Mishnah Hatanale, it already taught a number of cases that are not prohibited from benefit, such as the case of bestiality. So these parentheses, how does it work? So Hatanale, so Mikatani was necessary to teach it again, I think. So Vinisni Havala Ba'iha. Just teach our Mishnah. You don't need Tamura. Or teach, right? Teach. No, 1 second. So Hatanale, so says the Gemara, Mikatani. It doesn't say how many animals does it take to prohibit it. It says over there in Tamura, a kol shehein, even one animal prohibits. Says the Gemara, fine. So v'nisni ha, just teach Tamura and don't teach Zevachim. Tamura teaches you that just one animal prohibits. Okay, so just teach that and don't teach Zevachim. Nisni ha v'lo ba'iha. Says the Gemara, no. Our Mishnah is necessary. Why? Takante it's trichale. Our Mishnah teaches you the remedy. What do? You have to kill them all. That Mishnah, or you have to let them graze until they get a blemish. That Mishnah doesn't tell you the remedy, what to do. It just says it prohibits them. So now what do? Our Mishnah tells you that they have to let them graze until they get a wound. Yeah, hatakanta it's trichale. Yeah, okay. I guess we'll stop there. Yeah.
Yes, go off.